Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Asia Solar Energy for Climate Change Conference, a platform dedicated to harnessing the power of renewable energy in our fight against climate change. This conference is organized by CarbonCare InnoLab and funded by the Jockey Club Charities Trust. This session on energy focuses on the Sustainable Development Goals number 7, which aims to ensure access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy. Millions of people still have trouble accessing electricity and have to rely on polluting fuels. And that in turn contributes significantly to climate change. So in this session, our speakers will be sharing some facts and initiatives that are put in place to work towards clean and reliable access to energy. So joining us today, we have Dr. Fahad Tahi Sadek Hesri, Chief Economist at Climate Finance Asia. We also have Dr. Kapil Narula, Senior Analyst at Breakthrough Agenda Climate Champions Team. And then we also have Ms. Rashmi Ranjith, Asia Regional Lead for Energy Transition at WWF Hong Kong. And lastly, Ms. Mahika Sri Krishna, Research Analyst at the Long Duration Energy Storage Council. So our speakers will each take turns to give their sharing on the topic, and after that we'll have a short Q&A session with the speakers before opening up to the floor to take more questions from our fellow audience. In a few moments, Dr. Fahad will help kickstart the conversation. We'll start with Japan, where he will be sharing the nation's progress on energy transition, how it's driven by government and financial programs. So I'll hand it over to you now, Dr. Fahad. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bonnie. So let me share my screen. Okay. So first of all, I would like to express my thanks to the organizer, to CarbonCare Asia and Organiser or other co-organizers for inviting me to this event. So in today's presentation, I'm going to present about one of our recent research on the determinants of the demand and supply of solar energy market in Japan, especially by focusing on the role of government support and financial programs. So after the Fukushima nuclear disaster in March 2011, that forced Japan to shut down almost all nuclear power plants and rely more on fossil fuel and domestic energy resources. So this had significant impact on the energy security of the country. And because of that, because of greater reliance on import, the energy self-sufficiency of Japan reduced drastically, and it endangered the energy security. So although gradually Japan started to promote more domestic energy resources, including renewable energy, and in the early years after the disaster, we have seen a significant growth in the domestic renewable energy, but most recently, this growth had been considerably slowed in the recent year. So in this research, we aim to assess the demand and supply side determinants in order to find out that what are the factors that have impact on this market, and therefore, in order to provide the policy recommendations to the government for targeting those sectors. So this is an evidence for what I have mentioned, that following by the Fukushima nuclear disaster, the self-sufficiency of energy in Japan reduced drastically. It used to be more than 20% in 2010, but it reduced to below 10%. However, gradually it is increasing, but still this ratio is one of the lowest in Japan. I mean, in Japan is one of the lowest comparing to other OECD member countries. And when we are talking about energy transition, mainly the most important reason that is mainly highlighted for reason behind the energy transition is environmental reasons. But for the case of Japan and for many other countries that rely on import of fossil fuels, not only environmental issue, but also energy security is important, as the promotion of domestic energy resources is in favor of energy security. So Japan is committed in significant reduction of carbon emission and enhancing the energy security and achieving net zero by 2050. And by 2030, relying on about 36 to 38% on renewable energy for the power generation. And this is show that the significant share of solar energy in the total renewable energy. And Japan is also ranked third as for the cumulative installed capacity of solar power. But I mean, as I have mentioned most recently, is reducing. I mean, the growth is reducing, and other countries are also showing better progress. So for doing this research, before running our empirical work, we have done an extensive literature review. What we found out is that earlier studies, majority of the earlier studies are focused on technology, technological progress, and technical methods behind the, I mean, for the reasons behind the supply of solar modules, especially. So it means technological progress resulted into cost reduction, therefore reduce the price of solar modules and increase the demand because of that. However, there are several other factors that a part of them highlighted in the literature, but we were focused on the other reasons. So apart from technology matter, there are some other reasons behind it, such as, for example, the economic growth. The higher the economic growth, the more demand for energy, including the demand for renewable energy. Price of oil is also important. Oil is a substitution energy resource. And usually when we are in a high oil price era, it will be more attention to renewable energy. And many governments are looking for substitution, and many governments increase their supports on renewable energy, usually in high oil price era. Or the type of government support, including feed-in tariff, is also very important. And role of financing is very significant, and many studies highlighted it because solar projects are more capital oriented, therefore cost of capital is important. And in our earlier studies, we found out that price of raw material, including the silicon price, is also very important. And this is one of the external factors that many countries, they don't have focus, they don't have control on it. And when we are looking at Japanese case, there are several supportive policies in Japan from the side of government and market, including feed-in tariff or renewable portfolio standards that utility companies needs to allocate a significant share of their portfolio from renewable energy, several subsidies and grants, installation subsidies and research and development grants, or tax incentives are also available for investment in green sectors. Low interest loans or supports regarding the issuance of green bonds. For example, Japanese government provides subsidies for green bond verification, and lots of pre-issuance costs are covered by the government. Or regulatory support and simplification, especially in bureaucratic countries. Investment in this sector, in the green sectors, needs to be simplified and needs to be deregulated. And grid access regulation, that government has this, I mean, there needs to provide a fair access to grid. And let me go fast because of shortage of time, that we, based on the literature and based on the theory, that I didn't brought the theoretical background here, we have selected different variables. We have economic variables in our assessment, including GDP, including price of modules. We have government policy variables, including feed-in tariff, including PPA, installation subsidies, renewable portfolio standards. We have one variable for that cover the environmental awareness, also energy self-sufficiency and price of other energy. And this is showing that what we have, what data we have used for each of these variables. And this is the results. This is just, I mean, this is the preliminary results that we found out that in the demand side, role of GDP, role of economic growth is very important. Feed-in tariff is also one policy that can stimulate the demand. Price of modules are also important. The higher the price of modules, the lower demand for solar. And in the supply side, we found out that monetary policy variables, interest rate is important. And since solar projects are capital oriented, therefore accessing to cheap finance will facilitate, will make the development of these projects easier. And we also have another monetary variable because for the case of Japan, interest rate is very low. Again, this is confirming what we have mentioned. Price of modules and silicon prices are also important, and silicon price has impact on supply side too. So let me conclude by providing some policy recommendations that regarding the conclusion I have mentioned, what we have found, what are the determinants in the supply and in the demand. Regarding the policy recommendations, since we found out that interest rate and cost of capital is very important, therefore diversification of the renewable energy incentives will have a significant impact, not just relying on feed-in tariff, but also introducing other policies, including tax credit, grants for research and development, and so on. Facilitating the access to finance. Many green infrastructural projects are more relying on bank loans for their development. But bank loans maturity is different because bank loans are mainly short to medium term, 2 years, 5 years, or not more than that. However, for development of many of these projects, we need to have a higher maturity finance and more long-term finance. Relying on other source of financing, green bonds would be also another thing. And as we have shown, and as the study and literature review found, the learning, the technological development has significant impact on the current growing market share of solar in the world. So more investment in research and development will result in more cost reduction and making this technology more competitive. And promotion, for the case of Japan, since the yen depreciated drastically recently, so promotion of domestic manufacturing is also on the agenda, and this is also recommended. And fostering the international collaboration by having a more efficient value chain and the regional or global supply chain, it is possible to reduce the cost of supply and cost of production of solar modules even further and making this technology more competitive. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Farhad. It was a very insightful sharing that you have here. So I think, now that we've looked at Japan, so next up we'll turn to India, where Dr. Kapil will be sharing some of his takeaways from trying to expand LPG access in India for clean cooking. So over to you.
Bonnie, and also thank you for the organizers for the splendid opportunity and getting the right speakers. And I hope I can shed some light on SDG 7 and some of the lessons learned on expanding LPG access for cooking, clean cooking in India. I have just 4 slides, and I'll talk about first linking it up with the global state of progress on clean cooking, and then run into some of the key features of one of the schemes, which is run by the Government of India. Follow it up with some of the lessons learned from that initiative for other countries, which lack energy access, and also look at some of the challenges and the way ahead for India itself. So coming on to the state of progress in clean cooking, this is the report on SDG 7, which was released earlier this month from the custodians of the indicators. And it shows access to clean energy, clean electricity, as well as access to clean cooking. So if you see, from 2015 to the latest year, which is 2022, access to clean electricity has definitely improved from about 1,000 million to about now only 685 million people don't have access to electricity. But access to clean cooking is much, much more challenging, and the progress has really been slow. And till date, 1/4 of humanity still lacks access to clean cooking. So that's about 2.1 billion people. And we are actually in the midpoint of the 2030 agenda from 2015 to 2030. The progress is pretty slow. We have only about 73% of people covered, and till 2030, we'll only reach up to 80%. So despite the effort from all countries and substantial focus on meeting the SDGs, clean cooking continues to be a hard taskmaster, and we are not making sufficient progress. This shows some of the top 4 countries where clean cooking has progressed, and you still would find, although there has been large increases, and India has provided access at the rate of about 4% annualized increase to its people, still about 25% of the people don't have access to clean cooking, which implies about 360 million people. And the other major countries, are China, Nigeria, Bangladesh, and I'm not talking now on Africa. So these are the ones, the top 4. So despite all effort, still 360 million people, which is 1/4 of India, does not have access to clean cooking. So moving on from this big picture, I like to move into, what are the efforts which were done by the Indian government. And from 2009 to 2016, a duration of about 7 years, efforts were on providing access, but access was only provided to 16 million people. So this is the baseline for 7 years. And then in May 2016, the new initiative was launched, which was called Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana. And this translates to an initiative for providing access to clean cooking. And in the next 3 years, 80 million connections were provided for LPG. In the second phase, from 21 to 22, about 2 years, another 16 million connections were provided, and this time specifically for migrant households, both in the urban and rural settings. And after 2022, about 7.5 million connections were provided. So from 16 million people who were provided access in about 7 years here, in the next 7 years, more than 100 million people were provided access. And this was specifically a very, very targeted scheme. It was targeted towards below poverty line people. Only households which had a women head were given connections, and the scheme was only applicable to them. So it was clearly focused on women empowerment, and money went directly into the bank account of these women. This scheme was also based on providing access from socioeconomic surveys, including cost surveys, and was specifically meant for tribals and others in the later stages. In terms of implementation, in the first instance, all these households were provided a free LPG cylinder, clean cooking stove, as well as the connection. And in the later stages, after the first connection, they were provided with subsidies to refill the LPG cylinder, and the cost of that was subsidized. In terms of the impact of this initiative, Government of India claims that there was increase in clean fuel technology access from about 62% to near about 100% during these 7 odd years. From the national oil companies, it was reported that there has been a 60% increase in sale of LPG and more than doubling of domestic consumers. So in terms of impact, I think it was phenomenal. It led to access being provided to clean fuel and technologies. I would now like to share some of these lessons learned from this initiative. So the first one, which I would like to point out, is that the scale was really challenging. And when in 2015, before the scheme had started, India was on the top of the countries which did not have access to clean cooking. But what mattered was the political will, and the entire government machinery was put behind this initiative and effort, and kudos to the government for running this scheme in a focused manner. We also realized that national oil companies are really an asset, and the reach and the number of people involved, the human resources there, if you go with a strong will and political commitment, I think everything can be achieved. The other lesson which we learned was, this did not happen immediately or automatically. This was preceded by some of the other initiatives and measures. And I would like to point out that in 2013, even the rich households, for example, I also used to get subsidy on LPG cylinder because it was not targeted. So the first action which was taken was that they initiated a voluntary mechanism or a campaign, so that households which could afford this signed up to a program called Give Up the Subsidy. Then from there, it was moved on to income-based limit. I think about 10 lakhs in Indian rupees is the income for the household now, which has been decided. And only if you are below that income level, you can get that subsidy. And the third thing was that they followed up with a direct benefit transfer with no middleman involved. Directly from the government, the subsidy went into the account of these women household heads. And therefore, preparing the enabling ecosystem in terms of digital technologies, IDs, bank accounts, mobile technology, and transparency were some of the key lessons, which need to be implemented in, for example, African and other Asian countries. The last slide I would like to show is it did not solve all the problems, and there are certainly some challenges and way ahead, which I would like to focus on. After the end of the scheme, it was reported that 50% of the households did not refill their cylinders even once. So there's definitely a question on the affordability of the scheme. Some of the reports mentioned that the cost of LPG cylinder is still too high. About for BPL families, it accounts for about 25% of their annual expenditure, which goes into refilling. The survey, which was taken recently, says that there's fuel stacking and 41% of households still use biomass. This also led to macroeconomic impacts, higher LPG import bill for India, leading to energy security concerns. And I also I already mentioned affordability and continued accessibility for households. And lastly, the question of there is now impetus on investing in piped natural gas infrastructure for urban, and possibly it can shift to cylinder distribution chains for rural. Now, again, this is a challenge because cylinder distribution chains are really weak in the hinterlands, and this begs the question of, is LPG really the solution for clean cooking in India? Some of the reports suggest that we need to, because of these issues, there needs to be a phase down now of LPG, moving on to e-cooking, especially in urban areas, as well as decentralized solar-based cooking in the rural areas. Use of biogas, which has always been a challenge in rural areas. And of course, another alternate is concentrated solar in community kitchens in large hotels, restaurants, and some of the urban areas. I'll stop here and hand you back the floor. Thank you so much for your patient listening.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Kapil. So it's nice to, hear your sharing about how, some of the challenges, the pros and cons of LPG access in India especially for, households in the country. So I just want to take this opportunity as well to remind our fellow audience, if you have any questions for our fellow speakers, please put those questions in the Q&A box below. You'll see a Q&A button, so feel free to click on that and then put your question in, and we'll address those at the very end of our session. Okay, so next up we have Rashmi. Rashmi will be sharing her presentation from WWF, also on India, this time looking more on broader look on energy transition work, and then focusing specifically on the rural dairy sector. So I'll hand it over to you, Rashmi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bonnie, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to be part of this panel. Thank you so much to the organizers for having me speak on this session. I'll quickly move into my slides. So Dr. Narula covered this, the SDG 7 report recently, though he focused more on clean cooking. But the overall messaging that comes out from this report is that the current pace of energy access is not adequate to meet the 2030 targets. And there is still need for universal access to electricity and clean cooking, energy efficiency improvements, and more renewables in the energy mix. So I'll be today talking about the Climate Solutions Partnership. This is a 5-year philanthropic partnership with HSBC, WWF, and WRI, and where we focus on 2 main pillars. One is nature, which is to address the accelerating deforestation and to promote nature-based solutions. And the second part is the energy transition in Asia, which is the pillar in which I work, which is to raise ambition to drive emission reduction, demonstrate efficient and renewable energy solutions, and to grow low carbon business and finance opportunities. And as part of this energy pillar, we work in China, India, Indonesia, and Vietnam. And we are a team of about 15 people spread across these countries, including in the UK. So just a quick glimpse of what we do. We work with decarbonizing supply chains in the sectors, textiles, hotels, dairy, supermarkets, and in the 4 countries, China, India, Indonesia, and Vietnam. While we work quite a bit with corporates on decarbonization frameworks and target setting, like the net zero target setting, except for India in all the 3 countries. In India, which is the focus of my presentation today, we actually do pilots on solarization of milk chillers and retrofitting diesel ferries with electric motor. In Indonesia, we work with organizations on promoting biodiversity safeguards for any new project. And lastly, in Vietnam, we are supporting one of the provinces to set up, to define their net zero roadmap. I'll now move to the Climate Solutions Partnership. This again has 2 pillars. One is the nature-focused pillars, which is about promoting nature-based solutions. And the other is the clean energy transition and rural livelihood, which is the focus of my presentation. So before I go into the details of my presentation, I would like to request the organizers to please pull up the YouTube video. Thank you.
Milk is a very perishable commodity. The problem is if we don't have a sufficient infrastructure and power energy where milk can be chilled, the milk will go bad and its value becomes zero, and it's a loss to the farmers.
अब कभी कभी एक कैन खराब हो रहा है, कभी 2 कैन खराब हो रहा है। जैसे एक कैन भी खराब हो जाता है तो उस रोज हमारे को 3,500 से 4,000 रुपये का नुकसान हो जाता है।
और अगर उसी दूध को हम वहाँ ठंडा कर लेते हैं तो उसकी कैपेसिटी करीब 5-6 घंटा बढ़ जाती है, तो हमारे को कोई परेशानी नहीं होगी।
जिस समय हम लोगों को बिजली की ज़रूरत है उस समय बिजली नहीं है।
Farmers who has a meager income, it is becoming very difficult for him to have non-conventional source of energy, which was very expensive.
So we chose dairy sector primarily because of 2 reasons. One is the fact that it is fairly disorganized. It caters to a large rural population, farmers who pretty much all of them have a couple of cows or buffaloes. But globally, it's seen as a space where there is high carbon emission happening. So this was a good opportunity to decarbonize dairy as a sector, enable some level of organization, and also come up with disaggregated solution which can be at a farm level, which can be at a cooperative level, so that there is enough technology, there is enough finance flowing in, and they are able to make greater profits because of reduced losses, reduced diesel consumption, and at the end of the day, better quality of life.
इस समस्या को कैसे समाधान कर सकते, तो हमने 3 सोलर लेके हमने फील्ड में फिटवेट लिया। आज वहाँ पे 99% रिजल्ट अच्छा आ रहा है। उससे आज महिला खुश है, किसान सेक्रेटरी खुश है और कंपनी खुश है, और उनका भी दूध की कीमत बढ़े ताकि वह जैसा दूध निकलता है वैसा दाम उनको मिल सके।
You can stop here. Thank you so much for hosting the video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Let me go back to my presentation. Sorry, where did that go? Sorry, yeah. So you saw that basically what we do is we work in 2 of the big states in India, which is Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan. These are very remote rural areas. And what the WWF India team has done is that they're installing instant milk chillers. So basically by instant mean the milk chills in roughly 3 to 4 minutes. As the video said, milk is a highly perishable, if it is not maintained at a certain temperature, it goes bad, which also means, and many of these farmers own only 2 to 3 milk. So for them, it's very important to cool these milk. So what they do is they milk the cow in the morning, bring it to a center, a common center where these chillers are. Then the chillers cool the milk. And before WWF's solution, these chillers were driven because power is not 24/7 available in these regions. These were powered by diesel generators. So the solution that WWF brings is, one is the instant chiller that you can see in the photograph, Milko, the first one. And the other is solarizing it with a battery backup. So there is 24/7 power available for the milk to cool and maintain it at a certain temperature. So what has happened that the shelf life of the milk has increased. And most of these dairy farmers are, as you can see in the photograph, are mainly women from rural backgrounds. So at the moment, there is 35,000 liters of milk that is chilled on a day. We've installed 250 kilowatt of solar capacity, and we are adding about 160 more in the coming year. And 40 MSMEs. MSMEs are these micro, small, medium enterprises. These are like small enterprises, not like business, very small, tiny business enterprises. So we work with now 40 MSMEs, and each MSME is now able to save around USD 1,350 because of the replacement of diesel. So they're saving electricity bills as well as, removing diesel from their cooling solution. And we're working around with 5,000 dairy farmers, of which majority are women. And as part of this whole exercise, installing these machines, there is a lot of training that goes into it on empowering them on how to use these machines and maintain them. And our partners are, so we do work with the dairy cooperatives. Dairy cooperatives are basically the representatives of these dairy farmers. There's a dairy development board, and many of these women self-help group are also part of our project. So what's been the success? We've had a lot of positive. Sorry.
Yes.
Reshmi, sorry, the slides are not moving.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I was just going to interrupt.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Can you see the slide on successes?
It looks like it's not on full screen, or maybe you're sharing a different windows. Maybe try and close it and reshare the screen again. Yeah.
Sure. Sorry about that. Is it up now?
Yes, decarbonizing water transport. Yes, that one.
Just go to the slide before that. Sorry. Yeah, so just wrapping up on this one quickly. So in terms of successes, we are now expanding. We are getting a lot of interest from our neighboring states like Maharashtra and Gujarat, which are bigger dairy producers. And we are also looking at many of these dairy cooperatives have their own milk chillers, and now we are looking at solarizing them, putting solar panels and battery backup to ensure that the milk chillers are not powered by diesel. When we started our project, these were totally funded by the partnership, by the Climate Solutions Partnership. But as the solutions have evolved and as the results are coming, now we are getting more and more dairy cooperatives as well as farmers coming to us saying that they are happy to co-invest, like put in 50% of the investment into the project. And just last year, Government of India issued a notification saying that the instant milk chillers will be given a subsidy of 60%, so that there is greater uptake of the instant milk chillers. I mean, of course, with these kind of projects, there are always many challenges. Some of the challenges, especially with renewable energy projects, always is the financial constraints, limited technology options. Like we are, like Milko there are very few instant chillers available in the market, so we don't have multiple options of trying new technologies. Like I said, these are very rural communities. Skilled labor is very hard to find. So if a machinery fails, it takes at least 1 or 2 days for the technical staff to come and fix it. So lack of skilled resources is a challenge. Similarly, like I said, for maintenance and servicing as well. And in India, the policy around distributed renewable energy is still evolving. So that's the dairy cold chain. I'll also quickly give an example on how we are promoting clean energy in one of India's one of the world's largest wetlands. So Sundarbans is a very remote location in the east of India, which shares border with Bangladesh as well. And this is the largest wetland in the world, and it is highly prone to cyclones and waterways or water transport, or these ferries that you see in the photograph are the main mode of transport. This area is again very rich in biodiversity of plants and animals. So what we are doing here, these ferries that you can see on the photograph, these are the main mode of transport for people to move from one island to the other. So what we are doing is we are replacing the diesel. These were all diesel motors initially. Now we are fitting 10 HP electric motors, where the batteries can be charged later by the boat owner. And we've just finished one pilot, and we are moving on to 2 more new pilots. And that area is, there are around 40 to 45 ferry routes in that region that connects various routes on those small islands. So we are looking to scale, and we are getting a lot of interest from the local panchayat or the local government in the region to try out especially with the wildlife patrolling. That, as I said, that area is very rich in biodiversity. It also is home to the Royal Bengal tiger, elephants. So the forest officials are also very interested in piloting these solutions, so one of the biggest disadvantage of diesel is that, of course, the cost is high. There is a lot of pollution, black smoke that comes out, and there is a lot of noise. So just in terms of impact, if we are able to scale these projects to, let's say, 40 to 45 ferries, we'll be able to save around 70,000 liters of diesel every year, save around 186 tons of carbon dioxide. And I mean, I like this lady's smiling face where she says, now she can speak on the phone while she is traveling because there is less noise from those diesel motors, and then there are no fumes. As you can see in the photograph at the bottom, there are black fumes. So these are the things that we're replacing through these pilot solutions. I'll stop it there. So I think the idea is access to clean energy is still a need, especially in many remote areas of many countries, especially in Asia. And it's not that solutions are not there. There are various solutions available. The need is to accelerate access to these solutions, make the finance available, make the technology available, so that these solutions can be accessed by rural communities, and that brings a positive change in people's life. I'll stop it there. And we have the WWF India has a climate solutions partnership webpage where they have interesting more solutions on how the whole project is working. And if there are any questions, anyone can reach out to my colleagues. I would also like to thank my WWF India colleagues, because the work is actually driven by them. My colleagues Vishal and Deepak are the ones who deliver the project on the ground with their wider team. So it's thanks to all their efforts. I'll stop it there. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rashmi. I think your wrap at the end very much sums up the need for a lot more effort still needs to go into achieving better access for all these, especially these rural communities, for cleaner energy and more reliable access to these energy resources. And like you said, there are certainly various examples and various solutions to it. It's just a matter of how do we mass up the whole sort of production, and also scale up the whole idea and make sure there more people can benefit from these ideas. Okay, so we are getting some questions, but if you have any questions, any more questions coming in for for our fellow speakers, you've got we got some time at the very end to address those. So please leave those questions in the Q&A session, and we'll make sure to get through those at the very end. Okay, so we do have our final speaker. Mahika will be sharing her perspective on the role of long-duration energy storage in decarbonizing grids, reducing costs, and contributing to energy security. So over to you now, Mahika.
Yes, thanks, Bonnie. Just in the process of sharing my slides. I hope that's visible to all. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Good afternoon, good morning to everyone. My name is Mahika Srikrishna, and I am a research analyst at the Long Duration Energy Storage Council. And I'm very honored to speak today alongside my fellow panelists who are bringing such a diverse perspective on this topic. I think we come from different industries with very important perspectives on this topic at hand, which is Sustainable Development Goal 7, which focuses on ensuring access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. And we are clearly, from what we've seen today, at a very critical juncture in our global effort to decarbonize our energy systems through various efforts. Renewable energy like solar and wind are becoming increasingly vital, but the intermittent nature of these renewable energy sources pose a significant challenge as well. And this is where I'd like to bring in my perspective on energy security, on energy storage, and specifically long duration energy storage, where it comes into play providing the bridge between to a stable and reliable energy supply while we're integrating these renewable energy sources. So before I begin, I'd like to just quickly go over, as I know Dr. Kapil and Reshmi touched on SDG 7's latest report, but just going over the key elements of the Sustainable Development Goal 7. It is ensuring access to affordable energy, so making energy accessible to everyone at a reasonable cost, importantly, promoting reliable energy sources that are consistent and dependable for consistent energy supply, advancing sustainable energy solutions, so encouraging the use of energy sources that do not deplete natural resources or harm the environment, and arguably most importantly, contributing to our global decarbonization goals and reducing carbon emissions globally to mitigate climate change and the impacts of it. And each of these elements underscores the importance of having novel new solutions in order to support the transition to renewable energy and decarbonization, especially long duration energy storage in achieving this sustainable energy future that has been underscored in the Sustainable Development Goal. So before I continue, I'd like to just briefly touch on the LDES Council. We are an independent body with our own governance structure and with the mission to accelerate energy decarbonization through the scale up of long duration energy storage. We are a fact-based organization. We conduct research on long duration energy storage to improve knowledge of it for societal benefit. And we're a global organization. We have members across continents and countries, and we're an executive-led organization. So we have technology members developing long duration energy storage. We have anchor members, we have service providers, and we also have utilities who are able to be members of the organization and help the long duration energy storage industry grow. And the 4 families of LDES technologies are mechanical, chemical, thermal, and electrochemical. I'll go more into detail about these specific technologies at a later point. But next, I'd like to touch on decarbonization and the importance of it and why it is as crucial as it is today in ensuring that we have a sustainable future. We all know what decarbonization is. It involves reducing our carbon dioxide emissions and through primarily switching out of fossil fuels and transitioning to renewable energy. And reducing our emissions is absolutely vital to limiting global warming and the catastrophic impacts that we're seeing that it has on our weather today already, on the environment and human health, on economies across the board. According to the IPCC, to keep global temperature rise below 1.5 degrees Celsius, we must achieve net zero emissions by the middle of the century. And this is something that Reshmi touched upon as well, but we are very far from our goals at this point. So it is important to know that decarbonization is absolutely critical at this point, and the shift from fossil fuels, that is coal, oil, natural gas, to renewable energy sources like solar, wind, and hydropower is the way forward. And another aspect of decarbonization is also enhancing energy efficiency in various sectors, including sectors like transportation, industry, buildings. This plays a significant role. And I'd like to focus specifically on the decarbonization of the energy sector. The power sector is a key enabler of large-scale societal decarbonization, given its ability to generate electricity competitively from renewable resources. And currently, the power sector also accounts for about 30% of global carbon dioxide emissions. So given the important role that this sector plays in increased electrification and also in its ability to adapt, we need to focus on this section the most in decarbonizing the deepest and the fastest in order to enable lower carbon emissions in other sectors as well. So this transition, however, from fossil fuels to renewable energy has significant implications on the power sector and on its resource mix, and by extension, the reliable operation of the wider electricity system that powers modern society. And this is where energy storage resources come in to play a pivotal supporting role in this transition. And the role of long duration energy storage specifically is indispensable in the decarbonization of the energy sector. As we know, renewable energy sources are intermittent. They don't produce energy all the time, but long duration energy storage allows us to store energy, excess energy generated during peak production times, and use it when production is low, ensuring a continuous and reliable energy supply. And LDES resources store energy for longer durations than traditional energy storage of 8 hours and up, which is what makes it absolutely critical. Additionally, LDES balances supply and demand very efficiently, which is key to minimizing the costs associated with the energy transition, which impacts economies globally. Moving further into long duration energy storage and decarbonization, I mentioned that LDES resources store energy 8 hours and up. They provide a solution in storing energy in a flexible, low carbon and low cost way, and cost optimally store power for not just 8-hour periods or intraday periods, but interday durations even, ranging from half a day to a week, sometimes in capacity. The photo on the slide here is an image from one of our members, Form Energy, which provides an interday storage solution of 100 hours and up, which is absolutely novel. And this shows that it kind of fills a gap between where we are today in terms of today's battery storage and seasonal storage options. So LDES can provide that insurance against prolonged periods where there's low or no renewable power output. And in the near term, these assets can also act as insurance against elevated power prices, which is something that economies across the board have been dealing with and electricity consumers are experiencing in many parts of the world today. So as we phase out fossil fuels, the energy system is going to need new sources of flexibility, and LDES can provide this flexibility by responding to the changing conditions and ensuring reliable system operation, especially when it comes to depending on weather-dependent renewable energy, and as that starts to dominate system capacity and operations. We need LDES to bridge the gap between periods of surplus and deficit, just in order to ensure energy security and stable energy supply. So LDES resources play a critical role in enabling a flexible, resilient, and reliable energy system that can adapt to the increasing penetration of renewable energy sources today. And this adaptability is absolutely crucial as we continue to strive to reach our net zero goals and decarbonization goals cost effectively. Next, I'd like to move on to just explaining the different types of LDES technologies to you. So the long duration energy storage technologies are diverse, as you can tell, each offering different benefits. They can be broadly categorized into 4 main families. So we have electrochemical storage, which includes what you may know as lithium-ion batteries or flow batteries and various chemical batteries and metal air batteries, which store energy in chemical form. We have mechanical storage technologies like pumped hydro and compressed air store energy by moving physical components through mechanical storage. And these are just some examples of mechanical energy storage. Thermal storage usually uses heat-based methods to store energy, which can later be converted back to electricity or used directly as heat, decarbonizing the heat industry as well. Chemical storage involves converting energy into chemical forms like hydrogen and ammonia, which can be stored and used as low carbon fuels. So all of these technology families have many novel technology developments that all have developed resources that are able to store energy for 8 hours and up. Besides just the power sector that I touched on earlier, long duration energy storage systems can contribute to decarbonizing other sectors as well. Approximately 70% of global emissions can be addressed. So I touched on the electricity sector earlier, but 15% of emissions from the transport sector And the use of hydrogen-based fuels and green ammonia-based shipping fuel can decarbonize the transport sector through chemical storage, building sector through the electrification of building heating, through thermal storage solutions, the electrification of process heat in industries and iron and steel by using green hydrogen or process heat are pivotal for thermal storage solutions and chemicals. The use of hydrogen-based fuels can also help decarbonize the chemical sector. So each sector that's highlighted here can benefit from long-duration energy storage technologies tailored to their specific needs. And most importantly, as touched on before, reducing the need for fossil fuel backup power, which significantly highlights the importance of LDES in reducing greenhouse gas emissions and supporting our global decarbonization efforts. I'd like to leave you with this one last case study, and that is of microgrids. Now, if you're not familiar with microgrids, they are localized energy systems that can operate independently or in conjunction with the main grid. And essentially, they enhance reliability and resilience to remote areas. And they're important for energy security and decarbonization because they also help in the integration of renewable energy sources. So this is an example of a microgrid that is being tested to be powered by long-duration energy storage in order to ensure continuous power supply during grid outages. And Horizon Power, with funding from ARENA in Australia, is testing LDES technologies in Western Australia with zinc bromine flow batteries provided by a member Redflow. And there are many benefits from an LDES powered microgrid because even in high ambient temperatures in remote areas or specific areas that deal with energy security issues, this can ensure consistent energy supply. And it also supports carbon emissions reductions by helping integrate renewables into these remote areas through microgrids. It also increases accessibility, of course, to remote customers. Additionally, we have members who are testing their long-duration energy storage technologies and resources in other locations in North America, in hospitals, in military bases. Indigenous communities in North America are testing the integration of LDES resources for the purpose of providing power to remote areas. Microgrids also help power remote islands, and a utility in Hawaii is currently planning for solar and pumped hydropower storage to help power one of their islands. So these are just some various scenarios in which long-duration energy storage can be deployed in different applications and environments, and if proven successful, are a very, very important part of the energy mix in regional communities. So I will end with this, but thank you for letting me speak about the impact and the importance of long-duration energy storage in our future energy landscape. And I look forward to speaking with our panelists further on this topic. Thank
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much, Mahika. So given the time, I think we'll jump right into some of these questions that we've been getting from our fellow audience. So while we have you, Mahika, let's start the first question with you. So this person asks, how can the shift to renewable energy efficiency and electrification be used to enhance energy access, security, and affordability, especially in developing and undeserved areas?
My apologies, Bonnie. I don't think I'm able to see the question, but yes. How can the shift to renewable energy efficiency, and electrification be used to enhance energy access, security, and affordability? This is a really good question. I think there's a wide range of solutions to something like this, but of course, a lot of these technologies are in the early stages of development and require, as Dr. Farhad also previously touched on, financing and access to cheap financing in order to be able to scale up and deploy these types of technologies that ensure energy security in developing areas. I gave some examples of long duration energy storage resources being used in remote areas, in remote developing islands. So it's either their utilities that are procuring these resources and trying to push for integrating renewable energy sources into their energy mixes and being able to guarantee energy security on these islands using elders powered microgrids. But it is certainly a challenge, the electrification challenge in developing areas. And I look forward to being part of the solution. And I'm looking forward to hearing the other panelists' perspectives as well.
Yeah, so does anyone else have their take on this? Feel free to chime in as well.
Yeah, Bonnie, I would like to add. I think especially on renewable energy technologies for remote locations, I think is, of course, finance and technology is a challenge, but they are a better fit solutions when you think of bringing transmission lines, because just taking the example of Sundarbans, which is a very remote island disconnected from the main city or region. Some of the challenge in terms of bringing energy or 24/7 power is that these areas do not have transmission lines, or the cost of transmission lines for coal powered, which is the main supply in this region, it's coal power supply. So transmission lines and bringing access through coal power is really expensive. Rather, setting up decentralized renewable energy like small solar panels and powering them for lighting, for water purification, for charging your battery is much easier and cost effective than having to bring a grid in place, putting transmission lines. So microgrids, like Mahika said, there are a lot of microgrid solutions globally that can provide access to clean and 24/7 energy. And it's not necessary for, to make huge investments, especially in remote areas, in bringing the grid and transmission lines. So yeah, that's renewable energies are better solutions. Of course, it varies. Some regions are rich in wind, some are rich in solar, depending on what is the best solution for the region. Solutions will vary. Thank you.
Thanks. I noticed some of our speakers have kindly addressed some of the questions already in the chat box, but I figured, we can also bring some of these to the discussion. So for Dr. Fahad, there's the question about what role do you see Japan playing in promoting increased access to clean energy in the Asia-Pacific region, given its position as a major regional donor alongside with other Western countries and China? So do you want to maybe elaborate a little bit on what you've already explained in the answer?
Thank you very much. And thanks to Mr. Kevin for this question. Yes, Japan is committed as one of the major donors in development of renewable energy projects and energy transition in developing countries, especially in Asia and Pacific region. So what I answer to this question is mainly through three aspects. First of all, Japan as a major producer of green technologies in solar, wind, hydrogen, and geothermal. For example, Japan is the largest manufacturer of geothermal power plants. Has a role in exporting of these technologies and also the technological transfer. Secondly, in the funding aspects, through the ODA, mainly through JICA. JICA has individual participation in different countries or through other donors, jointly with World Bank or other donors, has provided lots of development assistances to developing countries, not only ODA, but also soft loans by JBIC, Japan Bank for International Cooperation, and guarantees that JBIC is providing. This is also has a very significant role in development of renewable energy projects. In addition to that, not only in the export of technology and in financing, but also in policy aspects. Japan is advocating for clean energy policy in regional forums or bilateral agreements and investing in capacity building and training initiatives to help the countries to develop the necessary regulatory frameworks. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we'll just get one more question for maybe Dr. Kapil. So this question asks about how can monitoring and evaluation and data collection systems be strengthened to better track progress and identify gaps and inform more targeted and evidence-based policy and investment decisions related to the SDG 7. So maybe just very briefly on that.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I think this is a major challenge, and countries around the world are struggling to do this. I would say that ICT technologies are the key to resolve this. Open data platforms, the use of data fusion to merge, availability of data from satellite pictures, night lights, radio signals, mobile penetration, and some of these can really create some amazing data visualizations for use of both measuring and monitoring GHG emissions as well as access to energy. But there needs to be a lot of investment and the use of machine learning based tools for this. I think development, putting money in digital public infrastructure is the key to move ahead in monitoring and verifications. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So given the time, I'm afraid we'll have to end it here. We do have some other questions that weren't addressed. So if you have any further inquiries, feel free to get in touch, and I'm sure we'll be able to get hold of some of the answers and get back to you on that. Just want to say a big thank you to our fellow speakers for your time, and also giving us such an insightful sharing, and also hope our audience really enjoyed this panel and be able to earn a couple of takeaways from here. So we do have one more session right after this, which looks at the roadmap to COP29. So please join us if you're interested. Thank you very much for your time today. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.